The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar focusing on Autumn's Pitch and Play, the Autumn Venture Challenge. So we will have a very interesting webinar today. Thank you for joining us. This webinar will focus mostly on the requirements, the eligibility, as well as how to put together a compelling submission for the Autumn Pitch and Play showcase at the annual meeting on March 2020 in San Diego, California. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. And we are joined today by two other speakers. So I'll allow them to do some quick intros of themselves. So maybe Vikar, and you want to go first, and then Corey second, and then I'll go third.
Sure. Thank you, Ria. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vikar. I am the chair of the Autumn Committee for Pitch and Play, and I also serve in the Autumn Committee for organizing the meeting. On my regular day-to-day job, I am looking at investments for early stage. So this is a perfect platform for me to, curate some of the startups and potentially invest in them if they fit our portfolio. So I'm happy to be on this panel and happy to explain some of the details that Autumn is looking to do. Super exciting, and I know you guys are going to benefit a lot from not just this webinar, but also attending the conference if you choose to do so.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Corey Acup. I am the Associate Director for Licensing and Operations at the University of Georgia. I am the past chair of the Pitch and Play competition and have either chaired it or worked on the program for the last 3 years. Really look forward to the participation in this program and wish all of the applicants good luck on being selected for the Final Four.
All right, thank you both. And my name is Ria. I'm Director of Operations for NCET2. And basically, what I do is, we work mostly with startups and Fortune 500 corporations that are scouting for new technologies and new innovations in universities and other portfolios that are available to them. And we help facilitate that process for them by use of virtual startup pitches, where we do a regular series of pitch sessions for our corporate members. So just to begin today's session, maybe it'd be a good place to start to do some introductions. So Autumn Pitch and Play was put together, or is an event at the Autumn National Meeting, where NCET2 and Autumn have come together. We partnered to put together, that particular piece of the event in March. So just a little background about NCET2. So as I mentioned earlier, we work mostly with Fortune 500 corporations. NCET2 is a membership organization, and our membership is mostly technology scouts, corporate venture people from Fortune 500 corporations that scout and look for innovative technologies in universities, angel groups, and state orgs. So we have a program called the Corporate Startup Development Program that specifically allows corporations to discover new startups. We help them develop the companies, and any company that we develop, we also have a funding arm for that. Essentially, when we work with startups, we try to help them as best we can when there is a corporate that is interested in working with that startup. So we do virtual startup pitches. It's essentially a platform where our corporates use to discover new startups. We have a corporate startup development program, so anyone with corporate interest go through that development program so we can help them move along with corporate milestones. And also, for companies that are starting out, or for researchers that would want to form a company but they need the assistance, we actually also help startups incorporate and set up their stock auction plans for for companies that are that need to get off the ground. So essentially, this is what we do, and why we are working with Autumn, because of our close relationships with startups and the universities that work with us. So enough about NCET2. Maybe Corey, you'd like to talk a little bit more about Autumn and what you guys do.
Sure, thanks, Rhea. So just to kind of give everyone a background about what Autumn is and about our organization, we thought it would be good to give you a little information, because maybe not all of the participants are aware of this national organization. You work closely with your university tech transfer offices, but may not understand where the tech transfer offices fit in a global view. So Autumn is a national organization, a professional organization that is present to support and advance technology transfer worldwide, not just in the U.S., but we participate around the world. We work with university tech transfer offices, developing best practices, provide guidance around those practices and how those practices fit in with sometimes federal regulations, whether it's regulations within the U.S. around research funding, or whether it's around intellectual property law and how that works on a country-by-country basis. So developing those best practices and guidelines. We assist with professional certification, both CLP and RTTP, and assist with career development, whether it's starting off early stage, guidance around intern programs for individuals that are maybe leaving the lab and looking for alternative careers, all the way through office director level professional development. Autumn also serves as a platform for corporate academic engagements, and we do that through programming at our national meeting. We do that through programming at the regional meetings in the U.S. and outside the U.S., as well as developing very specific partnering forums where you can interact very closely in a technology-specific area that you might work in. Why Autumn? Why should you care? Why is Autumn here? Networking. Really, the business that we're in technology transfer, in corporate development, in technology development, company startups, it's really a contact sport. It's about developing your networks. And Autumn is a great opportunity to do just that, to develop those networks, whether it's one-on-one through the forums that Autumn have, or through the annual and regional meetings that Autumn supports. We have over 3,000 active members across the world in over 800 research institutions, both academic, federal labs, government research institutions, and in the corporate world. Through Autumn, you get this large access to commercialization partners, being able to meet with them face-to-face, which is much better than through electronic communications, allowing you to develop those relationships needed to further your ideas, to further technology development. And Autumn is really the largest community of tech transfer professionals in the world. So we think this organization provides a tremendous value in what we do in trying to move technology from the research labs into the community to help individuals, across the world. Right? So now, pitch and play. That's what we're here for, right? Is to tell you about the pitch and play program and your participation, what you can expect from it. So pitch and play is actually an evolution of the business plan competition that Autumn has put on for a large number of years. Last year, Autumn partnered with NCET2 in this program because we felt like they were a great partner and they could provide some additional resources and additional expertise and contacts, additional networking that could benefit all of the applicants to the business plan competition. And when we did that, we changed the name to Pitch and Play. And it really is a business plan competition without the business plan. It's about the applicant's ability to present their information in an oral form, standing up, giving their pitch, and that's why we changed the name. For a $10,000 prize, but a lot of the value comes in participation in this program actually before you even get to the finalist, and that's working with NCET2 and working with their experts and developing additional contacts for your opportunity. This year, the Autumn National Meeting is going to be held in San Diego from March 8th to 11th. The Pitch and Play competition will be held on the afternoon of March 10th, Tuesday, March 10th. And again, the value for this is getting access to commercialization partners and mentors and getting this valuable feedback that you get from working with NCET2. A very important date that everybody needs to remember is the deadline for submitting applications to this program is September 30th. There'll be more information later in the presentation on how to go about doing or submitting your application to the program. Eligibility. So all startups that are associated with U.S. university technologies are eligible for the Pitch and Play competition. The submitting entity needs to be an incorporated company. The academic license, you need to at least have option rights to the technology, not just an MOU. You need to actually have those rights tied up. Otherwise, it's really not an attractive opportunity for investment. We expect a manager or a company executive to present the pitch, to present the venture pitch. This is not a technology pitch, so the science is important, but it's not the main issue that we're interested in the Pitch and Play competition. It's around the business opportunity, and that's why we request that we have a company manager or executive make the presentation. So if you've had a Series A round, if you've gotten some money into the program through friends and family, that's fine. But if you've had a Series A round or in excess of $2 million in private investment, you're really more advanced than the types of programs that we're looking for here. You've already made it past this point. What the Pitch and Play competition is designed for is to help earlier stage opportunities get to this point where they can pull a Series A round of investment. And if you're already selling a product, again, you're too far along for what our intentions for the program are. I think now I'm going to turn it back over to Vakar.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Rhea. Yeah, let me give you a quick update on how you can submit and what the submission requirements are. As Corey mentioned, there's some really good eligibility criteria that you should pay attention to. We'll follow up with a quick one-pager if you haven't received it already with that submission requirement and the eligibility. Essentially, we want to see your deck when you're submitting. The reason why this slide is simple is because we want to try and make it as simple as possible and as easy as possible on your end. You already have enough going on when you're trying to get a startup up and going. We don't want to make it any harder than what it needs to be. Give us just a simple deck of what you're doing. Make sure that it's not confidential material. We don't want to run into issues where there's IP rights that are being disclosed and you're having to start your clock on IP. Give us a description and you can upload that slide deck into the website that's here. That'll also be on our one-pager when we send it out. It should be just very simple: contact information, company name, and company information. To get into exactly what the pitch process looks like, I want you to pay attention to, if you could go to the next slide, I'd like you to pay attention to the time limits that you have on that presentation. Right? It's a very short presentation, 10 minutes. While it seems like a double-digit number, it's not very long when you're up there on the stage. We'll have a 5-minute question answer from the judges, but that 10 minutes needs to be rock solid. If you've done pitch competitions before, you know that time runs out very quickly. Generally, you only have time for between 6 and 8 slides, and each slide is very efficiently managed as far as your talking points. So we have a long list of judging criteria. These are your basic criteria that most VCs and angel investors look at. When you're doing due diligence, this is what I go through on a regular day-to-day, and pull this into an Excel sheet. And at the end, I come up with a red, yellow, and green. If you've got an amazing management team, it's a green, and you go down the list. And at the end, it's a recommendation. So not one judging criteria is more than the other. They're weighted, and sometimes you can have an amazing team and not necessarily a great solution, but you can trust on the team to come up with a good solution. So the judges are going to be a diverse panel of judges, experienced both on medical devices and therapeutics, as well as on the consumer end, so that if we have businesses that are on any of the three, we'll have someone that is an expert within that field that can weigh in. So know that the judging criteria is going to be as fair as we can possibly make it, but it will be a handful that will decide on who the winner is. If you want to pay attention to what that criteria is, go through this in detail and then make sure you hit the points either in your initial presentation or during the question answer. If you haven't done the financial projections, it might be still early, but you might not know the details, but make sure you are able to answer the questions when they do come up. What makes a good presentation? I think, in my mind, I separate the presentation in 3 sections. In the first section, I want to make sure I hit home as far as the unmet need and the problem that the technology is looking to solve. A lot of times, the technology overshadows the unmet need, and you start to talk about, the amazing secret sauce that you have, and that is only amazing because of the unmet need that you're solving. And so make sure you put that at the very top. Talk about your unmet need, talk about the problem that you're solving, talk about how big that problem is right in the beginning so that you get the judges engaged, you get the rest of the audience engaged, and then go into how your technology and how your business is solving that unmet need. The last portion is, because you guys are, most of the submissions that will be there are going to be early stage. The last one is estimates and guesstimates, right? So you'll have, good IP because you're all coming from Stellar University IP licensed. You'll have good management, but what about the financials? What about your projections? How much are you looking to make? Those are all going to be estimates, and you can sort of know that those are good estimates, and it's not really, in an investor's mind, that's the last thing that they're looking at as far as priority. They want to know, are you hitting a really big unmet need, and is your technology actually going to make a dent in that unmet need? So concentrate on those 2, and then the rest of the business will follow through. Don't ignore the business part. Have something there so that you can vet it out with the audience and with the judges. But having these 3 sections helps a lot. In the past, when I've pitched and when I've presented, I generally have 6 slides, spend about 2 minutes on each, and then add some color, so it ends up being between 7 to 8 minute presentation, and then you leave a lot of room for questions so that the investors can get their questions answered, and you can close that round of funding. So try to follow this. It's worked for me in the past, and I'm hoping that this format works for you as well. With that, I'd like to open it up for discussions and questions, and if we can answer any pointed questions that you might have. And your key deadlines, you want to make sure you pay attention to. September 30th is your first deadline. We have all of the submissions coming in probably the last week. If you can get them in earlier, we'll be able to vet them earlier and be able to give you suggestions. And if you want to resubmit, maybe there's a chance that you might be able to resubmit. Make sure that you understand that the finalists and the vetting process takes a bit. So we'll have till first week of December to get you out the finalist. We'll make sure we let you know in the first week if you've made the finalist round, and then 4 teams will be selected to attend the conference, and that selection process will be sent out, and the finals announcements will be made December 13th. The actual presentation, like Corey had mentioned, is going to be at the Autumn Conference, and the pitch and play is on March 10th, and that's going to be earlier in the day, and so you'll have some time to present. It's in the middle of the conference, so you have maximum attendance, and in the audience, like Corey mentioned, you're going to have some really powerful heavy hitters, if you want to say, from the university side, from the investment side, from the corporation side. So you'll get some really good input as far as who is going to be there, what type of investments they're looking for, and what changes do you need to make, and how you need to pivot in order to close that funding round.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Vikar. But before we move to Q&A, so I just want to mention that I think we talked about it earlier, that there will be a handout that'll be sent via email to you. So anyone who's registered to this webinar will receive that handout, that one pager that you could send out to your startups, to your colleagues, basically anyone who might be interested in submitting for Autumn Pitch and Play. And one thing I also want to emphasize, that for startups that are coming in, when you send us your information and your slide decks, we will look through them really. We will look at them basically as a first level vetting for us. So once you put together your description, make sure you mention in the description, like, in order for us to quickly see whether you're eligible or not, that you do have a university licensed technology as part of your startup. So that way it'd be easy for us to see what it is you're doing and which university you're from. All right. So let's see. We do have some questions lined up here. And while we're waiting for more questions to come in, I sent a message to everyone in the chat box. It should be visible to you in the GoToWebinar control panel. You can type in your questions. If there's anything that's not clear in the presentation, or if you want additional information, that would be the best time for you to ask your questions. So, Vikar, I have a first question lined up here, and Corey, maybe you could start with this question.
What are the strings attached? Excellent. So there are no strings attached, and the only string that I can think about is that we would like to ensure success on groups that are submitting, being vetted, and getting mentored by both NCET2 and any of the mentors that you pick up. We'd like to know where you go, but that's a very informal process, and it's a quick email, text, or whatever it takes. But as far as money is considered, there are no such strings attached, and we will not be following up with a contract or an agreement. We just want to make sure that you're using that money to develop your idea and making sure that you're going to the next level. Anything you want to add, Corey?
No, I think that's very clear. We've never ever had any type of requirement that the startups don't have to give up any equity for the prize money. It's literally who gives the best pitch, and it's prize money for that, so that you can take that money and use it for additional meetings that you need to go to, or additional business plan development, IP cost. It's yours to use to move your technology or your opportunity forward. It's not a lot, and we realize that, but we think that the program, particularly with NCET2, provides a tremendous value over and above the cash prize for all the participants.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, okay, let me just pull it up. Okay, here's our next question. Does the age of the startup matter? Our startup has been around for 5 years but have not made any real traction or institutional investors.
And this is Vakar. In my mind, no. And if you have been around for 5 years, you want to make sure you show that there has been continuous progress, right? So that goes into the judging criteria part. If you've been stale for the last 4 years, why should you get a influx of mentorship and some cash? So make sure you're able to answer that question. And I think if you can show steady progress, it takes a while when you're getting a therapeutic off the ground. We understand that, and some of these experiments are years in the making. We understand that as well. So make sure you highlight why it took you that long, and don't worry about a university startup being around for too long, because at the end, it's just a matter of you explaining that.
Yeah, and to add to that, being able to, or participating in the program and working with the mentors, they can help you try to address any weaknesses in your plan that you might have that might be around this. Maybe it's management, and you need to go out and find experienced management to help move this project forward. Or it's a key experiment that hasn't been done yet, and they can kind of help you identify maybe some funding opportunities to get that key experiment to allow you to move forward. So just because the startup has been around 5 years, that's not necessarily a negative. You use what you've learned during that time in your pitch, and be open to suggestions from the NCET team during the initial review process is my recommendation.
All right, our next question is, what industry or technical areas are you interested in? Is there a particular area that would be more interesting to the judges?
Oh, I can probably answer that one.
Go for it.
We don't have a particular focus. The business plan competition is just that, is how well do you have you identified your products and or services that you intend to provide based on the university technology? What are your hurdles? How are you going to address those hurdles? And in the past few years, the winners, at least in the last 2 years, have actually been on the consumer product side, because they were able to address the judges' concerns more easily than the other finalists. So there's no preference, but whatever technology area that you are in, you need to make sure that you completely understand the market that you're getting into and the requirements for launching your product or service. Because if you can't address the questions or concerns of the judges, then it's unlikely you'll be successful in the competition.
Yeah, that's a really good question on, how do you at least in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you tailor your presentation for the judges to make sure that they understand? Know that there is going to be a diverse panel of judges. So on my short list, I've got, therapeutics, I think, is generally the hardest to present because it's hard to demo a therapeutic. Devices, you're able to demo it. Consumer products, you're able to demo it. Therapeutics is a little harder. So we have panelists that are going to be on the therapeutic side. So they'll comprehend the science, the hard sciences that you're presenting, and know that it's not just the judges that are interested in this. I'm not a judge, but I know I'm interested in technologies that are coming out of universities, both on the cardiovascular and neuromodulation side. And I'm digging around different universities to find some golden nuggets that we could potentially invest in. And that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and I'm heavily doing that now. And so I'll be in the audience looking, and if there's something that piques my interest, whether or not they win, I'm going to make sure that I get their contact information and have a follow-up conversation. There will be a lot of people in a similar situation as mine, tech scouts or other corporations that are looking to develop their IP, and they might have a conversation with you regardless of your, winning status.
Our next question is, would a US-based startup with a technology developed in a Canadian university be eligible?
Interesting question. We talked about this slightly before this webinar. I think we're open to that. I don't see why we can't disqualify someone for not being in the US as far as core technology. The only restriction we want to make sure that we double check on is our funders. Sometimes because we're funded by the US government, we have a restriction on funding US based startups. And so regardless of where your technology is coming from, so as long as you're US based, meaning you're incorporated somewhere in the United States, you should be okay as far as eligibility. And I'll make sure I check in on where our funding is coming from and follow up with everyone with that criteria requirement.
Oops, sorry. I think there was one. Oh, okay. There was one question here that I think I missed. Sorry about that. Okay. Was this question answered? I don't think so, right? I am not a US citizen, but I'm a grad student in the university in the US. Can I apply for this competition?
Absolutely. So as long as you meet all the rest of the requirement, you're looking to commercialize a university technology. In fact, I know a person who was recently funded, a good friend of mine, not a US citizen, came out of the MIT ecosystem, and he's got a stellar startup and participated in our competition, I think 2 years ago.
All right. And any other questions? Okay. All right. And I think well, I mentioned earlier that we will be sending out the one pager for with more detail about the submission process, the eligibility, as well as what the application and selection process looks like. So I think we do have one question here about the licensing. Let me just open it up and see if this is something that we can answer today. And this is the last question I have on the queue. Hang on. It says here on the original announcement, the requirement was the company needed to have a license or option to license from a university. In this webinar, it's been mentioned that the company should have licensed the technology. Can you please clarify if an option to license from a university is sufficient to participate in the competition?
So this is Corey. In past years, the company, as long as you have an option, an exclusive option to the university technology, then I think you're eligible to participate in the competition. We call options, but they're just a time-limited license. So if you've got a license to the technology, an option is a license. It just may not be to the end of the patent life. It just may be time-limited. So in my opinion, that in the past has served as sufficient criteria to be eligible to participate. So I don't think that's changed any, but I'll let Bakar address that. In the past, it's been fine.
Yeah, no, the rule is the same, and if you have an option for the license, you're eligible. And if the scenario is you don't have money to get that option, I've been there in the past. See if you can find a way to defer the payments for that option agreement later and get something from the university so that it doesn't get taken from under you. And then, if the competition is successful and you happen to be one of the winners, then maybe you can put that money towards securing that license. But do get something from the university. That way, this is an exclusive technology that you have access to.
Okay, I think that's the last question on the queue. So again, I'd like to thank Vikar and Corey for joining us today and taking time off their busy day to explain a little bit more about the Pitch and Play Autumn Venture Challenge. We really do appreciate you both supporting this webinar and talking about what it is, so we could help answer some questions that we've been receiving from members of the audience. And also, as I mentioned, we will send out the material through email. So if you have colleagues that missed the webinar, you could just forward it to them. The recording of the webinar will be available as well, so you'll receive a link on how to access that. We do encourage everyone to work with their startups to see if they are interested in joining the competition. And as mentioned earlier, the deadline for the competition is on September 30th. You will receive all this information in a follow-up email after the webinar, and hopefully this session was helpful to you. If you have any additional questions, please send me an email at riaancheta@ncet2.org, or you can go to our website or Autumn's website for more information about the annual meeting as well as the Pitch and Play competition. So before we close, Corey and Vikar, do you guys have anything else to add?
Ria, really appreciate you hosting this and putting everything together. Attendees, I appreciate you guys taking time out to come in and listen, and I hope to see your application soon. I really want to emphasize that beyond the cash prize, the conference itself is a really good networking opportunity to create a successful startup. All of the commercialization partners that you would need or you could need in that process are going to be in the room or around in the conference. So please do take advantage of attending that conference. And no, I don't get paid for advertising Autumn.
Yeah, Bakar, I would like to reiterate everything that you said. That's perfect. So even if you're not a finalist in this business plan competition, I think that attending either a national or a regional autumn meeting would benefit you in your movement of your opportunities forward through the vast networking that's available through autumn.
Okay, thank you both. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you to the audience for joining us this afternoon. Additional information will be forwarded to you. So we're really thankful to have everyone on the call today. So again, thanks again. Have a good afternoon.